Today's video is going to be a review video, and I'm doing a review on this kind of new foundation from a new brand. That is why it is new. And this is the Fiona Stiles Luminous Finish Foundation Concentrate. This is a new brand from Ulta, and Fiona Stiles is a pretty popular kind of celebrity makeup artist, and she has released her own line of makeup. I think it's pretty exclusive to Ulta. I'm sure if you go to like the Fiona Stiles website, you can buy it there, but it's not sold in Sephora's or anything like that. It is an Ulta exclusive brand, and I've been very interested in this brand. I think that when makeup artists decide to put their name on something, it's so important because it is their name and their reputation on the line. And so I think that comparatively with other brands, I think that typically from ones that are curated and made with a makeup artist, especially when their name is attached to something, I just think it really like shows in the brand. And Fiona Stiles' line is actually kind of reasonably priced. This foundation retails for $30, and I think that that's actually a pretty good price for like a higher end foundation. I've seen most foundations from higher end brands usually range like more in the 40 to 60, 80s, whatever sort of dollar mark. So I think that getting a $30 foundation is actually a pretty good deal, and I find that across the board her range, while not obviously drugstore prices, isn't like Charlotte Tilbury or to compare it to another sort of celebrity makeup artist. It's not also on that end, so I think that that's kind of cool. So moving on to a little bit more about this foundation, as I mentioned earlier, this is the Luminous Finish version. If you saw my Zendaya inspired summer makeup tutorial, you would see that I picked up the box that said Luminous on it, but I got the matte concentrate. I got the matte version of it basically, and I ended up switching it for the Luminous, and I'll kind of explain why, but she does have two different formulations, so depending on your skin type you can sort of tailor it to that. The shade range in this is pretty good. I forget the exact number of shades, but I know for me, I was very impressed because they actually have this shade here, which is a lighter shade, but it has a nice, not super strong, but a good yellow kind of golden undertone to it, which I know that, it seems like there are so many different fair shade foundations, and they just seem to come in either like a weird beigey tone or they're very pink. To find something that is just yellow toned and pretty is very, very hard. So I absolutely adore this. This reminds me a lot color-wise kind of like a MAC NC20 foundation, so I really, really enjoy that. Moving on to the two different formulations, again, as I mentioned, we have the luminous version and we have the matte version. They sound exactly like what they do. The matte one isn't a completely dead looking matte, but it is definitely still a matte finish. When I applied it, I didn't really notice any sort of dry spots or anything like that. If you do go back and watch that video, you will see that the coverage is fantastic. I feel like the coverage on the matte version is better than the luminous version, and I don't find this to be all that surprising. In my time with makeup and what I've experienced, I find that matte foundations just tend to be fuller coverage. I think that they appear fuller coverage because you're just not getting light reflecting off of all of your imperfections, whereas you do kind of get that a little bit with more of a luminous finish. So if you are into a full coverage, you maybe prefer a little bit more of a matte finish, I think that the matte concentrate is going to be beautiful for you. It's a very non-drying matte. It felt very comfortable all night long, and for me, I could still sort of zhuzh it up and give it a little bit more luminosity when I sprayed a little bit of Max Fix Plus and just applied a good highlighter on top of it. So if you're just really going for that coverage and that's what you really want, I think that the matte version will be a very, very good option for you. However, for me with my foundations, I tend to prefer a little bit of a dewier finish. I think that it's a little bit more youthful. I like the feeling of having that extra moisture on my skin. And so when I accidentally got that matte version, I was a little bit disappointed, but I decided to go back and pick up the luminous one. And overall guys, I'm not going to try to beat around the bush too much, I love this foundation. This one, as I kind of, previously mentioned, doesn't seem or doesn't appear to be as full coverage as the matte one, but it still is a good coverage foundation. The name is a little bit misleading though, because when I hear concentrate, I think of something concentrated. So I think of something that's going to be very full coverage, and this doesn't seem to completely give me this. I would call this a medium, like a solid medium coverage upon first layer. If you layer it up, you can definitely, I think, achieve a full coverage, but coming from something that claims to be a foundation concentrate, I guess I would expect a lot more coverage, but for me that's not a big downfall because a good medium coverage foundation is all I really need. But if you want that like Estee Lauder double wear, super intense, really full coverage, I don't think that you're really going to get that from this. As far as the longevity of this, I find this will last about a good 8 hours before it starts to not necessarily break down, but I have this on my skin today, and you can just definitely see more of the luminosity coming through, which I actually think is really pretty. I don't like the look of oily skin, but the way that this looks, it just looks like you're hydrated and very moisturized. Not oily, but it just makes your skin look good. I do notice though, around my nose, you know, sort of those main culprit areas, I definitely noticed a little bit of my redness starting to peek throughout the day. I noticed that my freckles started to show a little bit more bit. Overall, you know, things just start to seem to be popping up a little bit more. It's like my skin's kind of eating a little bit at the foundation. But I find that if I use a primer on before this, I don't get that issue. If I decide to prime before this, which I'm not a big face primer person, but on the days that I have done it, which have been a couple of days here and there where I've really wanted this foundation to stay on, it totally does. So if you really want even more longevity, we're talking like 10-12 hours, just slap a primer underneath this and you'll be good to go. And I love that because I like the versatility. I like that it can be a long-wearing foundation, but it doesn't at all feel like a long-wearing foundation. This foundation also comes in a pump, which is awesome. I mean, how many times have you gotten a foundation that doesn't come in a pump? Where that is one of the biggest downfalls, because I know that it's annoying. You seem to just waste a lot of product, and I know I myself hate it. But one thing that's a little bit tricky that while I'm trying to do this, I should mention, you have to put this cap on the right way or else it won't shut. And there are so many times where I sit here fidgeting with this. You basically have to get these little like indentations to align, and sometimes I forget that, and so I'll like spend forever trying to get it to work and it doesn't. But little side note, this foundation, as you can see here on my hand, it's kind of thick-ish. To the touch, it doesn't feel like, it still feels liquidy, but it kind of holds its shape, which I think kind of allows it to be a, you know, like I said, that solid medium coverage. But overall, the texture of it, when you actually feel this foundation, it is super lightweight. I mean, it almost like feels like water. It's just so thin and wonderful. But I've had other water-based foundations in the past, and they just don't seem to give me the coverage I need. I find that they can kind of apply a little bit patchy, and this just applies like a dream. It's just silky and wonderful. And I think that the overall finish that you get from this is just so perfected and so beautifully luminous without it being super dewy. I mean, hopefully it's going to pop up here on camera, but the way it just beautifully covers everything, covers redness, covers, you know, a lot of different imperfections in the skin. But the finish that it leaves the skin is also not super oily. You know, I think sometimes with luminous foundations, there's a thin line there where you can start to get a little bit oily looking, and I don't think that this does that, which I think is fantastic. Skin types I would recommend this for are going to be, you know, your dry to normal, and then possibly combination skin. If you're very oily, I mean, get the matte one. That just makes sense. But honestly, I think that if you're kind of like me and you sort of have combo skin, I really think that the luminous one is a great one. There's no real detectable scent in this. It doesn't smell makeup-y, but it doesn't smell perfumed or scented. It just kind of has no scent, which I like because I don't like scented foundations. Overall, I think that this is like 2 thumbs way up. I will zoom you guys in on my face here so you can kind of see a little bit of it up close here in a second. But I just really feel like this foundation just hits all of the major marks for me. I like the price point. I love the shade coverage. By the way, I am in the shade number 2. Probably should have mentioned that earlier, but I love the shade range, and I like the coverage of the foundation. I like the longevity. I like that the longevity is almost kind of customizable depending on if you decide to put it on a primer or not. I think that the packaging, besides maybe the cat flaw, is actually really good. And overall, I think that it is such a fantastic foundation, and I'm very excited to try more from this brand, because if the rest of our line compares to this, I think it's going to be fantastic. I know I was kind of swatching and going crazy at Ulta, but I decided to stay tame and only get the foundation. But I definitely now am interested in getting more of her products, because I mean, honestly, like I said, if it lives up at all of what this foundation is like, it is fantastic. As far as application methods, I have tried this with both a sponge and a brush. Whenever I use a foundation, I just prefer sponges. I don't know what it is, but there are like almost no foundations that I really truly prefer a brush with. So for me, I still like using this with a sponge. That may compromise on coverage a little bit, and I have used it with a brush. It applies beautifully, but a way that a beauty blender can apply your foundation to make it look like skin is just something that I really personally enjoy. But I think that no matter how you like to apply your foundation, I think that you are going to get a really solid result from this. If you guys have any more questions regarding this foundation, please leave them in the comment section below and I will be sure to get back to you as soon as I can. Overall, I think it's fantastic. Definitely go to Ulta, sort of play around with the shades and stuff. Find one that's good for you because I think that this is great. And similarly, I think that if you decide to pick up the matte one, you won't be disappointed either. But that is all that I have for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed this and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.